Hello and welcome back to the Making a Husband podcast with me, stand-up comedian, writer, a fragrance connoisseur, and all-round decent lad, Tez Ilyas. And with me this week,
As
always,
is Tez's wife, Shy Ilyas.
yay!
That was a really good intro.
Nice and professional because this is a special episode and we've got a lot to talk about. So shall we just get into it?
Let's get into it.
Right, guys, this is going to be a special episode about our trip to the Holy Land, Jerusalem and Palestine, Al-Quds and Palestine. So there's a lot to talk about, so we're just going to get straight into it. So this is going to be unlike other episodes. We're just going to talk about our trip because a lot of you are asking.
Yeah.
And also I think it's really important to talk about what we saw, what we experienced, and give it the respect that it deserves and have a full conversation about it rather than just snippets here and there, rather than just a 10-minute conversation about it. Let's do a full episode about it. So this is what this episode is about. And if it's your first time watching, welcome to the Making a Husband podcast.
And we made it back. So the last one we left it in the cliffhanger.
The last episode we did say, I wasn't worried about anything happening there. I think I was more worried about getting in at the border. But yeah, anyway, before we go into all of that, overall, how you feeling? How are you feeling after those 10 days?
I mean, yeah, you know how I'm feeling. I'm not feeling great.
Yeah, tell them, innit?
Yeah, I feel, I was saying this to Tez, I've not been right since I got back. We've been to quite a few deployments and this has been the first time that I've come back and I just feel like something shifted. People did say to me before that, oh, when you go Palestine, something will change. And I was like, oh yeah, because I had an idea that I would feel down, but I didn't know that I would feel like this.
Yeah.
And it's probably hit me more because I've been home for a few days and you've been...
Yeah, I came back and immediately the next day went to Dublin. So I've not had a chance to sit with it and process it and let it flow through me and exactly think about... I mean, I know how I feel about it. What we saw was awful and some of the stories that we experienced and listened to were horrendous. But at the same time, we will also talk about the real joy of spending a week with Palestinian people and how amazing they are. So we will also touch upon some light as well, because we know there's a lot of darkness in this story, but there are real moments of joy and light. So we'll also touch upon them because it's important to humanize Palestinians. One thing they kept saying to us is that we are not victims.
Yeah.
We are freedom fighters.
Yeah.
And so as much as the horrors of Gaza affect all of us every single day, and there has been for the last 2 years, I think what's also important to remember is there are Palestinians in East Jerusalem, in the West Bank, and in refugee camps in Lebanon and in Jordan and maybe in Syria as well. I'm not sure about that. But there are also Palestinian in the diaspora around the world, including the UK, America, rest of Europe, etc., that are living their lives.
Yeah.
And it's important also to reflect that in the story as well. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. I think we saw a lot. So we're going to touch upon a few themes that kind of will be able to relay the experience of what we saw, but also then talk about things that you guys have asked in that, is it safe to visit? Should we visit? What's it like? What's it like getting in?
What did you do? Where did you go?
Yeah, and all that stuff as well. So we'll talk about that a bit later on. But I think firstly, it's important that we touch upon the actual experience. So Habib went there. We got invited by a charity called Sabil UK, and they're a Christian charity that organise trips for people who want to see the current situation in Palestine.
I do tours.
Yeah, and they do tours. And so that's how I got invited. And obviously, I don't go to places without Shy. So that's how she got invited. And yeah, they were a great charity. We went with, I think there were like 10, 15 of us all together. So we'll talk a bit about that later on as well. But I think one of the main things that we saw in East Jerusalem and the West Bank is, the first thing that we saw was apartheid. There is a very clear double system in place.
Yeah.
One for Israelis and one for Palestinians.
Yeah.
And even within Israel, there are subdivisions between if you're an Israeli Jew or an Israeli Arab. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So there is a clear division in place between Palestinians and Israelis. And we felt that the moment we crossed the border. So we went via land. We landed in Jordan and then went via land over the King Hussein Bridge, and you're straight away into the West Bank. But in your mind, you think, oh yeah, the West Bank, that's the Palestinian area. But actually, since the Oslo Accords in the 90s, the West Bank has been divided into three distinct units. 66% of it is in Area C, and that is solely controlled by Israel. So imagine the area that you think is Palestinian, 66% of it is totally controlled by Israel. So they have built their own separate road networks, villages, um, training ranges for their military, and Palestinians,
Buses, their own buses.
yeah, their own business, road networks and
Mm.
stuff, and Palestinians don't have access to those areas unless it's without special permission or permits. For example, if they're going to work in those areas, then there's Area B, which is a mixed control. So it's so the military, so militarily is controlled by the security of it is controlled by Israel, and access to it is controlled by Israel. But Palestinians do have some um, like some control over other aspects, like the civil aspects, and those areas are shared by both Palestinians and Israeli Jews. And then there's Area A, which is about 20. So yeah, Area B is about 20%, and then Area A is about 20%, which is solely controlled by Palestinians, by the Palestinian Authority. And that is mainly the big cities like Ramallah and Hebron and Jenin, etc. But even in those places, there are major issues. And so even access to those places can be stopped at any time
Mm.
by the Israeli military, or not even the Israeli military, actually. But that's one example of how there's a clear double system in place. What else did you observe? Do you,
Injuries.
do you want to talk about the wall?
How? Which
And the
wall? There
and
were so
well,
many
the
walls.
main wall that you guys saw, the checkpoints and that, because you saw that, because
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I went to the mosque at that point.
Yeah. So on. So there's in. I didn't even know this. This is how much. How little I knew. That in Jerusalem they have split the place from East Jerusalem to West Jerusalem, and there's. Oh, I don't want to swear. There's a wall where they've pushed all of the Palestinians behind this wall, and within that wall, there's a refugee camp in there, and there's I just can't, like, there's a refugee in. They have to. You go in through a checkpoint, right? You go in, it's fine. You go in, you get
Mm,
checked in it. On the way out, they check you. There's flipping soldiers with um, rifles and all sorts of stuff, guns and stuff. But basically, behind that wall, there's no traffic control. There's no policing. There's no authority there, right? They're not allowed to have. There's no even like binmen. There's no one to do their waste
mm,
disposal, um, and they're just basically all living on top of each other. So they're not allowing the Palestinians to expand or to build more buildings, and they still have to have permits. So, for example, oh, the worst thing, they they have a certain amount of water that's given to them. So so I think is it in units? What do they say?
so it's a bigger issue than just in East Jerusalem. So the whole of the water in the West Bank is controlled by the Israelis, and often they will build their settlements at the aquifers on top of mountains where the best access to water is, and they divert those waters to settlements. And so they ensure that the Israeli settlers and the Israelis on the border of the West Bank have the access to the most water, and they get it through their pipes, they get it through their plumbing, whereas the Palestinians are afforded a lot less water. So it's almost like
It's
10.
75. So it's basically seven. What is it in units? How do they say
I
it?
can't remember the exact
It's
numbers.
least. No, I because it's basically 300 and something for the Israelis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
So
can
they
check
get like
that.
300 units a day,
Yeah, and then it's
and then the Palestinians get
75,
75 a day or
and
something like
then
that. Or no, it's a week or something. I can't
a
remember the
week.
exact
Yeah,
numbers, but it's basically,
and then 2 liters or whatever going into Gaza.
yeah, it's like disproportionate the amount of water that Israelis have access to than the Palestinians have access to. But also all the Palestinian houses have tanks on their roofs.
That's how you can recognize that they're
That's how you know
Palestinian
yeah,
houses.
that's how you know the Palestinian house over an Israeli settler house. So
And
the
the
Palest
soldiers can shoot into the tanks.
yeah, let's just talk about
Yeah,
we're
because you're
jumping
talking
in,
about
we're
tanks.
jumping different things in it.
Yeah.
So so water is another form of apartheid. So yeah, as I said, there is different access to water, even though all that water is coming from Palestinian land, it is diverted disproportionately to Israeli settlers and Israelis than to Palestinians, even though the water is from their land. That's really, really messed up because water is life. Most Palestinians come from farming communities, especially the ones outside of the big cities. And so imagine that water, not only does it affect your everyday living, imagine you only had access, imagine you had to ration water every single day of your life. Because there were some villages, especially the ones near settlers, where the water tap is turned on for them twice a month so they can fill their tanks. And then once that water for the month is run out, they've run out of water. Imagine that they've got no more water then for the rest of the month. So they really got to ration and be careful how they use that water. But Israelis have like sort of like a like they have more than they need.
Whatever we're saying are things that we've seen. So we're not saying things based on like someone telling us something. We've seen the tank. So I think that's quite important because some people have said that in the past, and it's just we've seen it. And we know when I was talking about that wall, there's a big wall that separates them. You can tell the way that the buildings are, and then the way that like the worst thing is people were like, oh, can we donate? Can we donate? But the people that live behind the wall in East Jerusalem, they're just people like us. They've got jobs. They could be
Mm,
like teachers,
mm,
doctors, where
mm.
anything. But they've been pushed into living like this, and I find that so bizarre. And on that wall, the kids had drawn on it something like free our country, free country, free life or something. And the soldiers came and they put bullets through it. But there's a school there, and I was saying this to Ted because he wasn't there. This is East Jerusalem still, and it's a girls' school. So what would happen is imagine you're living in that confined space and you're a bunch of kids, yeah? You're kids, you're like 16 years old or something, and you're constantly being dehumanized, you're constantly being made to feel like crap all the
Mm,
time
mm.
by the soldiers that are there. So then they would go and they'd throw stones at the soldiers because, you're frustrated, of
That's
course.
what kids would do.
Kids would do.
Any of us would do that. I mean, we saw the marches over the weekend in London, and people were fighting with the police over what they think is unfair treatment. Imagine you were undergoing what they're
Yeah.
undergoing in Palestine. Of course, you'd fight back.
So they were saying that 35 kids have been killed.
35.
35, and I think it's in the last few years, but it's around about 30, 35. And that's what the soldiers would do, even though they know that those kids haven't come from that school. There's an UNRWA school that's been closed down now. They would go to that school and they would shoot at the wall and the glass at the windows. And they do this all the time to scare the kids.
Yeah, and then that stopped parents sending their kids to school because the kids were terrified, but also the parents were terrified of sending their kids to school in case something happens to them. But that wall that Shai was talking about, it basically splits the whole of the West. It runs the whole of the West Bank, and it splits the West Bank from the rest of Israel. And so anyone who is behind those walls needs a special permit, a special work permit to enter Israel or Jerusalem for work, for example. And if you don't have that permit, you are not allowed to enter Jerusalem. So imagine you're Muslim, which 98% of Palestinians are, and the third holiest site in Islam is in Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa Mosque, and you're not allowed to visit it. Imagine that. Imagine you're not allowed to visit it. Like, that's mental. Like, imagine that'd be like living in Rome. Imagine you're living in Rome as a Catholic and not being able to visit the Vatican. Imagine how mental that is. So it's absolutely crazy. And that wall is a real like throwback to like we talk about the Berlin Wall that separated East and West Germany and how bad that was. Because on one side you got democratic Germany, on the other side you've got sort of communist Germany. But it was a really bad thing that it separated families because those borders are drawn arbitrarily. That wall is arbitrarily. So sometimes it split villages, it splits families. And so you got family on one side of the wall and family on the other side of the wall. And it's horrific. But that's the same across the West Bank. So there's checkpoints everywhere. I think at last count there were like 2,000 checkpoints across the West Bank
It's crazy.
that Palestinians need Israeli permission to cross. So imagine you come across a road that only Israelis can use. So it's a checkpoint on this side. So imagine a straight road and you're trying to go across it, right? So that road here is only for Israeli use. And you've got village on this side where your family might live, but you're on this side. There's a checkpoint across going this way. And at any time they can close that. So then you don't have access to the side. Or if you're on the other side and you need to come back, you're trapped on the other side. And then sometimes you might have to go around an hour to get to that side. It's crazy. And what the craziest thing, I think the thing that I found most craziest about it is like those checkpoints, they can be closed by civilians.
Zionist settlers.
by settlers. So it's one thing the military or the police closing it, right? But actually, if I'm a settler living there, I can close it myself. And the Palestinians do not have permission to open it until someone else, either the police, military, or another settler decides to open it. How crazy is that? It's one thing getting this inhumane treatment by the police or the military. It's a completely different kettle of fish having that treatment thrust upon you by other civilians. That's crazy. That's insane. Like, no one should think that's okay. Nowhere else in the world can one set of civilians police another set of civilians
Mm.
about where they can't go. That's mental. It's disgusting. But yeah, so that is life. And another, I guess, a similar theme to apartheid is ethnic cleansing.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a bit about that village that we went to, Lifta?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We went to. It's actually the first time I was really deeply talking about it. It's making me really sad.
I know, I can
Um,
tell.
we went to a village and it was 19. It was during the Nakba, wasn't it? When
Yeah,
they
1948.
and
Yeah.
they pushed out 3,000 Palestinians.
Yeah, so it's quite a large area, and so basically Jerusalem as we know it now didn't exist back in 1948. Jerusalem was kind of old Jerusalem, the old city which is behind the fortified walls, almost like a little castle. So that was what Jerusalem was, which is where Al-Aqsa is, which is where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is, which is where the Western Wall is, the Jewish holy site. So that area there was all Jerusalem was Jerusalem effectively. Everything outside of it was basically other villages. And so Lifta was one of these. And it was home to about 3,000 Palestinians. But not just Muslims though, Christians and Palestinian Jews as well. Because remember, before 1948, before the Nakba, the Jewish people who lived in Palestine were, apart from the ones that had migrated from Europe, but the people that had been there all the time, had been there for centuries, were Jewish were Palestinian as well. So you had Palestinian, Jewish, Christians, and Muslims all living side by side. It's only later when the big migration happened and the Nakba happened that then there was a big division in between, oh, we're Jews, we're not Palestinian. So at the time, there were 3,000 people living in Lifta village, most of whom were Muslim, but there were other groups there as well.
Yeah, so we went to the houses, and this is how bizarre it was. We went, so you walk down this little path, and there was like this little spring water dip pool thing. Was it?
What is Lifta, first of all? Explain to them what Lifta is.
What do you mean?
Like what? So village. What happened there?
It's a village. You just said it's a village where they were attacked.
Yeah. So
Zionists came, settlers came, and they basically, like, we met someone and one of the guys there, he was showing us around. His grandma had helped, like, his grandma helped his mum and told her to run because they were going and they were just killing everyone. They were just basically going in the village or house by house, and they were just killing people. And they were talking about a story. There was one family who was living next to a Palestinian Jewish family, and do you remember they got along really, really well? And then when the Nakba happened, they turned on them. Like, they just turned on them.
it really reminded me of partition in India, Pakistan,
Yeah, I was thinking
1947, where like Muslims and Sikhs, especially in Punjab, just live side by side, Hindus as well. And then when the partition happened, suddenly you found yourself on the other side of the line. So if you were Sikh or Hindu on the Pakistan side of the line, or if you were Muslim on the Indian side of the line, and you're trying to get to the other side, there were just this unimaginable violence and neighbors turning on neighbors and stuff. Obviously, there were there were stories of heroism as well, of people looking after each other and taking care of people from the other side. But yeah, there was just this unimaginable violence, which is what happened in 1948. So the Zionists came and basically pushed all these Palestinians out of the village so they could take over.
Yeah.
And then we were given a tour of what is remaining of the village, because that village has been basically settled on, and there've been new houses there, and it's a large, thriving Israeli Jewish community. But there is still an area that hasn't been settled on, and that is still kind of as it was in 1948, and it's just derelict houses basically.
Yep.
And we were given a tour of it by a grandson of one of a young. So basically, this grandma, basically, she was a young girl. She was like 10 years old when this happened in 1948, and then she told her grandson the story, and her grandson was then telling us the story.
Yeah, so when he was showing us, there was obviously like there was a mosque there were houses, but they'd all been like graffitied on, and there was just like, and then they'd be painted on like the Palestinian flag on the stone walls, but there was a bit, there's like a, it's, uh, it's like a, it was some water. What was it? It's not like a, do you know that water bit?
Yeah, so there's a spring water that where I guess Palestinians would use to, wash their clothes, but they also use it as a stream
It was a way
to
to like they would
water
talk.
their crops and
Yeah,
stuff.
and it was a meet-up point for them as
Yeah,
well. So
yeah.
like the women would come and they'd, be like, there's a nice little community was there. And then when we went there were settlers there, and they were basically like playing music and you taking a dip in there, and
They were
it
like
it was
basically
just really
in their
bizarre.
underwear.
Yeah, but one got fully naked, and this is quite
Oh
important to note
yeah, he
because
did. Yeah.
we'll talk about the reason why they get naked. So one man just got completely naked, but when we were going through, we were looking at these like derelict houses that have completely been just like broken down. There were holes in the ceiling, and it turns out that when the settlers started to build better houses further up in the village, they started to drill holes through in the hope that it would collapse, the structure would collapse. That's how that's how what can't get my words out. And then like there was a mosque we went to, well, which was a mosque, all completely graffitied out. I had like, I think they just used as like a drugs den.
Mm.
And you could just see like there were like alcohol bottles, and then a settler actually walked past us and he was holding a gun on his waistband as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was just
It's very
crazy.
passive aggressive.
They're very passive aggressive, and that was really like, I think I was a bit traumatized from that.
Because we live here, we're not used to people having guns on their hips. But also, it's not like everyone can carry a gun. All Israeli Jews can carry guns.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's an equal society. Like, kind of like, I'm not saying America's not an equal society, but in America, by and large, most people can get access to a gun.
Yeah.
But in Israel, all Israeli Jews can get access to a gun. Especially in Israel. So it just like, yeah, you just routinely, and it's one thing seeing the military and the police carrying guns. Okay, fine. We're not used to seeing military on the street here, but fine, whatever. You get your head around that. But when you see civilians carrying, not pistols, AK-47s, rifles, just slung over their shoulder, young people. Now, imagine your 19-year-old nephew or niece carrying a big rifle,
16, 17-year-olds.
carrying a rifle, just walking around. It's crazy because, yeah. Anyway, but it's one of the ways to suppress Palestinians, because at no point could you ever like get into an argument with an Israeli,
No.
because you don't know what the consequences of that
They can
would
shoot
be.
you.
Yeah, A, shoot you, but
And then the
also just-
army will
yeah,
protect
but also
them.
just go to the police, or that be like that Palestinians harassing me,
Hmm.
and then they just get in trouble. So like they've even suppressed them to that point where it's like they just kind of,
They have to be passive. They have to
yeah,
just,
they have to be quite passive, because like day to day I'm saying, because yeah, there's just a two-tier society there. But yeah, Lifta Village is one of those eye-opening moments where you're like, oh wow, actually you can see frozen in time a village that was ethnically cleansed in 1948, and derelict houses, and Palestinians are not allowed to go back and rebuild. They're literally not allowed. And the reason they put those drills in the ceilings and the roofs is because back in the day, before steel, obviously houses were built in a slightly different kind of way, and they were fortified using stone and cement and that sort of stuff. And so the idea was, if you drill a hole in the ceiling, that would collapse the structure. But whoever built those houses knew what they were doing, because they're uninhabitable. Don't get me wrong, because of all the problems around it, but the structures haven't collapsed. So big up whoever that architect was.
yeah.
You did a great job on those builders and that. You smashed it. But another example of sort of ethnic cleansing is what's happening in Masafar Yatta, where we met Basil Arda.
Yeah.
So Basil Arda, you might know that name. He was one of the directors of No Other Land, which is the Oscar-winning documentary, the documentary that won the Oscar earlier this year. So Basil Arda is a Palestinian man who has remained in his village. So what's happened in his area? They reside in the south of the West Bank. Essentially, most of that is Area C. And so they are being increasingly pushed out of their homes,
Intimidated, harassed.
harassed, physical intimidation, physical violence, all that sort of stuff. And basically almost all of the Bedouin tribes that lived in those areas that used that land to graze and raise their animals have been pushed out into smaller and smaller villages. And even those villages are now shrinking because settlers want to basically take over them. And which is what No Other Land is about. And so we got a presentation and we met Basil Arda and he told us his personal story. He showed us around his house. And actually when we came back,
Just yesterday, we
just
just found
yesterday,
out
we found out that
that
he,
he's been attacked and the military have raided his house. We were literally at his house like a few days ago.
but all of that is to try and push the Palestinians out and into further and further smaller places. They basically call it the Gazification of the West Bank.
Also, it was his friend that was shot as well and killed by a
Yeah.
settler who then was released and was back on
Yeah.
terrorizing
So
them
one of the
again.
contributors of the film, obviously when the film got released, the harassment for them increased tenfold because they were like, how dare you tell the world about what's happening here? And one of the contributors to the film actually got killed this year after the film won the
Shot.
Oscar. And the settler who killed him basically was back in the settlement 2 days later. He claimed self-defense. And it's their word over their word, isn't it? And their word carries a lot more weight to their own. They're basically policing themselves. And they're like, oh, self-defense was it? All right, back you go then to the settlement. It is insane. And it's just they're carrying but they've got the resilience to want to stay on their land. It's crazy.
We could talk about so much in regards to their attacks, but there's just not enough time because we're just talking about one village. There's many villages and there are many families that are constantly, nightly, have to lock themselves in their house and are literally caged in because settlers are going around every single night practically to terrorize them, and they fucking terrorize them.
Yeah, that brings us nicely onto Sadat's story.
Yeah.
So not using his full name for a reason, but Sadat is a family man who lives in his house, and him and his family were blessed. They had quite a lot of land back in the day, but after the 1967 war, which is when Israel started occupying the West Bank, basically life became a lot more difficult for him. So a lot of this settler violence and basically terrorism happens in the outskirts of big cities, because the big cities are still largely run by the Palestinian Authority, based those areas around. So imagine Manchester, right? So Manchester's kind of, even though it still has its major problems and not complete freedom, but say Manchester's run by the Palestinian Authority, but all the other places around it, like Oldham and Bury and Stockport and Macclesfield and places like that, that's where the real problems are, and that's where the settlers cause the most issues. So they will build the settlements around them, and essentially encircling that town or
They
city.
know what they're doing.
And so that's where the major problems happen. So we met this one guy, Sadat, who's a family guy. As I said, he was blessed. His family was blessed with a lot of land back in the day. And then once the Israelis occupied the West Bank from 1967 onwards, life became a lot harder for them. So basically, all the houses and land around their property and land started getting occupied by settlers. Settlers started moving in, but his dad refused to leave. Threats, even payments, like the threat, they like offered to buy them out. And when I say buy them out, guys, I'm talking about insane amounts of money, like millions, like 10, 20 times what that land might be worth. This just give you a mindset of how much actually it means to these Jewish settlers to settle on that land. Like, it means an insane amount.
I
to
do
them.
wonder sometimes do they say the insane amount because they know that the Palestinians will say no because
Well, some have said yes, because obviously, and I don't blame them for that, because it's either you take the money and run, or you're gonna have decades, and we're talking about decades of harassment
and
of your
abuse.
family. And who would do that? Well, Sadat did, and his family did. So everywhere around them, basically, and that's not to say that they bought all the houses. A lot of people, most people, 99% of people are violently pushed out and harassed out. I'm saying this particular family refused to leave. And so they were offered money to leave. And they kept saying no, kept saying no. And then basically what happened is all settlers basically started building around them, confiscated farmland, confiscated other parts of land. And I had the question, I was like, well, why don't they just confiscate this house then and just kick them out? And so basically what they explained was like, they have some sort of religious morals that refused, that they wouldn't do that. So they need them to give up the land otherwise it becomes haram for them. I didn't fully understand that. But basically they're then using physical intimidation and harassment and threats to try and make them leave. And so this house, so that 50% of the land has been taken over. The house that they're living on, which is about another 10% of their land, is basically caged in. So it's caged from all sides, and there's a gate at the front. And imagine the family who lives there, the Palestinian family, don't control the gate. The gate is controlled by the Israeli military. So the military decides when they can leave their house, when they can enter their house. For a few months, when they did have control of the gate, and so they could leave freely, they'd get so much harassment from their settlers, it became very difficult to leave the house. Like the kids would go out to play. Grown men
This is what I was talking about.
would throw stones at their kids.
Not only that, and what else would they do?
And then when the women would come out of the house, when the ladies or the children would come out of the house, so whatever, to go about their business or maybe just sit outside or whatever, the settlers would go on the roofs and get naked. Get naked
Why?
to shame them into going back into the house. So they were essentially prisoners in their own home, having done nothing wrong.
And the gates are electrocuted.
Yeah, so there's electrical fence all around. There was one story where I think his mum was really
Really
ill,
unwell. He had to
really
break the
unwell,
gate down.
and he kept phoning the military like, please open the gate, and they ignored him. Eventually he broke the gate and he went to prison for 2 days for it, and then they released him because the court was like, well, I mean, you probably should have opened the gate, innit? But then they were like, if you ever open that gate again, we'll kill you.
Just process this for a second. Like we put it up on our Instagram as well if you want to see, because we made a video of the recording the house. But this is the kind of life. So when people say to you that this is like whatever's happening sorry, in Gaza, this is not Gaza. This is important to note. This is not Gaza. This is what's happening in Palestine.
In the West Bank.
In
They
the
call
West
they call it the Gazification of the West Bank, increasingly pushing Palestinians into smaller ghettos until eventually they'll erupt, and then they'll have an excuse to
Well, they did
wipe them all
erupt
out.
when we were there. They had a situation.
There was a situation, but
Oh, did we talk about the when we met that man from Louis Theroux's documentary?
yes. So Louis Theroux's documentary, which was quite high profile this year, featured a guy called Issa Amro, and he's in Hebron. We should talk about Hebron actually.
Hebron, yeah.
So Hebron is another one of the big Palestinian cities, and a portion of Hebron has been basically designated over to Israeli settlers. So in that area, in that community, they pushed out 40,000. 40,000. That's almost 40% of the population of Blackburn. 40,000 Palestinians were pushed out of that area to make way for 400 settlers who are protected by 4,000 military personnel.
So whose house we were in, around them there was a settler house, and there were IDF soldiers, and they were standing there with guns and stuff, and they were you could just tell they were just
Staring
waiting.
at us, yeah.
They're just waiting for a reason. I think they could just tell they were, and I just felt. And then the house that we were in, they had to have cement in their house, in their windows, sorry, to protect them, because the settlers keep coming and they keep harassing and torturing and abusing the family.
They keep smashing the windows. So they've had to put concrete where the windows are so they can't throw stuff into the house. Imagine that. Imagine that's that guy's house. Crazy. Like Isamra was such a lovely guy,
Yeah.
and he gives us a little tour of that area. That's the area that you see in the Louis III documentary, where they've made checkpoints for Palestinians to come and enter, or that can be closed at any time. Palestinians have to go around if they want access to certain areas, and those areas the Israeli Jews are free to come and go as they please. It's just a really bizarre
Terrifying.
situation, and there are 4,000 military personnel to uphold that apartheid.
I just don't understand the people that defend it. I don't understand it.
It's beyond. It's got to the point where it's beyond my understanding. I don't get it, because I get it. If you're one of those extremist Zionists, I get that. That's what you believe in it. That's what you believe in. So that's what you're going to do in it. Fair enough. But I don't get the people who aren't that and defend it. especially if you're not like as a Jewish person. Obviously, Jews have this belief that that is their promised land, that land is promised to them by God, right? If that's your belief, fine, we can have a discussion about that. But if you're not Jewish, what reason have you got to support that?
I don't understand that. Also, when you talk, they say about it's their land that's promised to them, but I don't understand the violence that comes from them. I don't understand how that goes hand in hand with you're supposed to be like you're supposed to be religious or getting naked or
Yeah,
intimidation or abusing or harassing. None of that makes any sense to me. Like,
yeah,
like I don't get it. I don't get it.
you're right. I mean, you hear these stories sat at home, you watch the documentaries, but when you go see it and you actually listen to the personal stories, I'm just like, I don't understand the level of depravity that would come from torturing a family for 40 years
Yeah,
to harass them into trying to leave their house when it's their house.
yeah,
So like I said, I don't understand it either, and I don't understand the level of support for it. It just it's beyond me. But having said that, it is important to note that there are a group, and they might not be a big group. There might be a minority within Israel, but there are Israelis who are working to try and dismantle that system, who are working against that system. We met one such group, Rabbis for Ceasefire.
yeah,
And so they're speaking out, for a ceasefire in Gaza and to stop the awful genocide that's happening there. But also, the other thing they do is they travel to the West Bank and they put themselves physically in between the Palestinian villagers and the settlers and the police and the military. And they put their own bodies on the line against them. So that's something I have to applaud them for. We did ended up having a very, very fraught and interesting conversation with one of them because as good a thing as they're doing, our politics and their politics didn't quite align. So there were still some differences that we had, which ended up being quite a tense conversation. But I still have to give them credit for the real work that they do on the ground, protecting Palestinian civilians. And even Basil in the village that we talked about, he talked about actually how Israelis sometimes they come and they sleep in the Palestinian houses to try and
yeah.
protect them from the settlers, and from the Israeli military and police structures. So big up those
But
guys.
when I asked that rabbi and I said, what consequence do you get? And she goes, we don't get a tax break. So this is quite. So I know this is you're going to think, what the hell? So Palestinians have to pay 3 times more
Yeah,
tax.
yeah, it's another part of the apartheid
Three
system.
times, 3 times more tax than an Israeli, and I don't understand it.
I mean, there's so many incentives. This is the thing. There's so many incentives for Jewish people around the world, Jewish diaspora, to move to Israel. And one of them is tax breaks.
Mm.
One of them is they'll get money to go and settle into a land, into a
They get
settlement.
paid. They get
They get paid to
paid.
do that. And so, if you have a belief that that is your land anyway, you are incentivized to go and move there. So, a Palestinian person, be they Christian or Muslim heritage, that can or otherwise, that can trace their heritage back 2,000 years. One of the guys that we spend a lot of time with, he could trace his family lineage back to old Jerusalem
Mm.
to the time of Jesus.
Mm.
His family were one of the first people to become Christian.
Mm.
Imagine that. So 2,000 years, right? He doesn't have a right in that land, but some kid in New York who has no, if and but has a Jewish background and he wants to move to Israel, can just go and settle himself in the heart of the West Bank and come and freely go to Israel and Jerusalem as they please. That's fucked up. That's really messed up.
Yeah.
But as I said, there are obviously Israeli people as well who don't believe in that system, and but I think they still believe in Israel though. So this is a strange thing. I don't think they believe in this version of Israel.
Mm.
I think they believe in a version of Israel that is fair to Palestinians, that gives Palestinians their own state, and allows them the freedom to live and freely and happily. I think they believe in that version of an Israel. Whether that version of Israel is even possible, I don't know. I guess time will tell, in the near to medium future. But yeah, so it's important to note that we did meet Israeli people, Israeli Jews as well, to get a different perspective. And I think we were due to meet a military desert as well. So there's one woman who refused to serve in the IDF, but we didn't end up, I think her time or something, we didn't end up getting to meet. That would have been really
That would have been
interesting
interesting. Yeah.
conversation, but we didn't end up getting to meet her. Um, but we met so many amazing Palestinians, the great and the good of the West Bank. We were blessed to be able to meet Mustafa Barghouti,
Oh, he
who
was. I never thought that I'd meet him.
incredible guy,
Incredible.
incredible guy.
Absolutely incredible. He's got such a powerful presence.
And so articulate, so smart. So
Mm.
Dr. Mustafa
Dr.
Barghouti, I
Mustafa,
should
yeah.
say, to give him the respect that he deserves. An incredible guy in the heart of the civil society of the Palestinians. We met him in Ramallah. So Ramallah is like the capital of the Palestinian state, and just an amazing guy. And he's been in this fight his entire life. He was part of the he was part of the negotiating team in the Oslo Accords, but then Yasser Arafat and the PLO ended up making a deal behind their backs, and he was there part of. It was him, Edward Said, and a couple of other guys who were like the foundations of the Palestinian intellectual movement and resistance. And so he was there in the first Intifada in 1988, the second Intifada in 2000, and they lived through it all. And now he started an organization that empowers young people to find their voice, because they know, they've been fighting this fight their entire lives. Mustafa Barghouti, bless him, he's not a young man anymore, and he knows that it's time for him to pass the torch on. And so they found a civil society group that empowers young people to carry on that fight. And yeah, so he was an amazing guy. He talked to us about the problems faced in Gaza, especially gave us a big brief on what's happening in Gaza, but also what's happening in the West Bank, the apartheid that they live under, the different rules that they live under. And it's amazing because you could meet the average Palestinian person and not really know there's anything happening in their lives,
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
we should talk about that. It's such
Well,
positive, joyful
we're gonna get all the
people.
negative stuff over with.
Yeah. Is there any of the negative stuff to talk about before we talk about
We should talk about the prisoners at the.
Yes, absolutely.
That's
Go
quite
on.
important.
Yeah, go on.
We met a prisoner. We met there was
We met a
so
few
we met a
people who
few.
were released from
There was
prison. Yeah.
there was one. We're not allowed to obviously mention names, and we have to respect that. That's fine. A young lady. She was absolutely phenomenal. She was so beautiful. Honestly, absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous girl. And I say this because I think to myself that a girl that age should not be living and having to go through the stuff that she went through. So she was arrested. We'll talk about. She was basically arrested and put in prison. And when I talk about torture, I mean serious fucking torture. Yes, excuse my swearing there. But the one thing that she said that has honestly that I've been thinking about it every single day was when, because she's Muslim, when you're Muslim, the IOF, they threaten you with rape, right? Because they know that with rape, that's a big thing, isn't it? Like obviously, especially for Muslim, they're like, we're gonna record it, we're gonna, blah blah blah, stuff like that. But the worst thing is when they arrested her, one, they first of all put her in prison. It was a male prison to start off with, so it was just her. Two, they beat her while she was naked and she was on her period. She was on her period. And for 3 days, they left her naked and they used to beat her up every single day, right? So just think about that for 1 second and how surely it goes against every single human right or whatever we've got protecting us. Then when they put her in a female prison, they put her in a cell with a sex offender and someone with mental health issues. So they put this young girl in a cell where they were hoping she would get attacked. Luckily, she stuck up for herself. She's strong, she's a very strong, resilient girl and stuff. But anyway, she went through so much.
She ended up becoming the leader of the cell.
She ended up being in the leader of
She
the
ended
cell.
up becoming the top dog in that cell.
But she got released. And what they do is the first 60 days, you're not allowed to have any contact with the outside. So when they arrest you, they basically can torture you for 60 days. And if and also one thing that I kind of remember reading about it, but when you speak to some people, they can put you under administrative charge, which means that they don't need a reason to hold you. And there's like 3,000 Palestinians under that at the moment. And that could be days, weeks, months, or years they can hold you. But anyway, she was in this prison. Because they couldn't break her, they used to just torture her and beat her regularly. And when I tell you that I was in awe of seeing this girl. And afterwards, when we were saying goodbye, and I gave her a big hug, and I said to her, you know, hopefully, inshallah, that I really hope that I will get to see you again. And then she was like, inshallah. But then she was saying like her nervous system had completely broken basically down. Like obviously
She'd
she's
have mad PTSD and all sorts, and
crazy.
it affects you so much.
It affects you so much. But just like I was just like looking at her thinking she's, you know, my niece Nadia, she reminded me of her. And now
Yeah, so yeah.
she
Only a couple of years older.
only a couple of years older. And I just thought to myself, like, this, what has she done to deserve this? Like, she's seen her family get abused, her dad being imprisoned. She's living under
You
apartheid.
know what she got detention for?
No,
Social media
yeah, social
posts.
media. Oh, there's loads of them apparently.
Yeah.
And they just, so that was one. Then we spoke to a journalist that was in prison.
We should talk about the wider thing. So
Yeah.
basically, there are currently about 12,000 Palestinians in Israeli prisons, and it's a record number. It's never been this high.
The hostages, really.
Yeah. So 56% of those have
Oh, sorry, it's my Siri.
hostages. You set your phone off by
Yeah.
saying, you set your watch off by saying hostages. That was the magic word that I don't know if you're going to get raided any second now. There's no hostages in this room.
We have no hostages.
I am a hostage to Shy, to Shy's love, but that's about it. Um, so there are about 11 to 12,000 Palestinians currently in Israeli prisons. 56% of those are held under two classifications: administrative detention and unlawful combatants. That means they can take anyone at any time and charge them under administrative detention or unlawful combatant. Unlawful combatant one is mainly used in Gaza. Administrative detention is mainly used in the West Bank. So imagine, but 56% of those have never been charged with a crime, have never gone to court, and are just being left to rot in prison. And some of people in administrative detention can be in detention for up to 20 years. Not up to 20 years, like indefinitely, basically, until it gets sorted out one way or the other. Either they get charged and convicted of a crime, or just get released.
They can literally kill you in that time.
They can just pick you up and put you in prison. Those are hostages.
Mm.
That's what hostages. And if you talk about Gaza, and yeah, that means they're taking Hamas out of Gaza and unlawful combatants. Some might be Hamas, sure. I'm not disputing that a portion of that might not be Hamas, yeah, whatever. But they can just take anyone, any male or female of combat age, which basically means over the age of 14, 15. They've got granddads in there. They've got women with Alzheimer's in there. They've got kids in there. Anyone.
Oh, what about the fact they keep the bodies when they die as well?
Yeah, that's another thing that they do. Like, well, if someone dies in custody, they keep the body. Another way to torture, like, it's one thing your loved one being taken away from you. Imagine you find out your loved one dies and then you can't get their body back to give them a proper burial. Because burial in Islam is a huge thing. It's a being buried with dignity and properly in Islam is a big thing. And so holding on to a body is another way of torturing Palestinians mentally. But yeah, so we met this amazing young woman and a few other people who were held in administrative detention, and the conditions are horrendous. There's torture, there are inhumane conditions, there is
This constant threat
widespread
with rape.
use of sexual assaults, which have been well documented. You can Google that. And so obviously we need the hostages that are in Gaza to go home, of course. But what about the thousands of hostages held by Israel? They also need to come home today.
Something really weird happened to you. But talking of hostages, when you when you went to pray.
Yeah, so all right. Let's talk now about the amazing, wonderful Palestinian people and culture. I had a really interesting experience. So one evening we were out with the group that we were in, and we were at a local cafe in East Jerusalem.
Why were we at that cafe?
Oh, we were at that cafe because it's a cafe bookshop, and we were at that cafe because the owner of the cafe had been arrested that day because he was selling books that the Israeli military didn't approve of.
IOF decided to rock in and be like, you're bad-mouthing us.
Now, this happened at another bookshop, Ahmed, who we met at this is the world famous Jerusalem bookshop. And Ahmed had been arrested, I think, a few months before that, and
Yep.
he'd been held for 20 days and then released pending an investigation. And basically, they came in and confiscated loads of books. and they were like, oh, why selling this? Why? Basically, they're going off the because they couldn't read English or Arabic, just Hebrew. So they're just going off the pictures. Why selling this one? Literally judging the book by its covers.
Yeah.
There's a real sense of like irony or something in that. Um, but they were showing us the books. They were like, these are just books they're written by academics
Yeah,
and
academics around the world, babe. They're
yes,
selling books,
yes.
and they're selling verified books by authors that are best-selling,
These
and
aren't like jihadi manuals
life
or
and
anything like that.
occupation and
Yeah.
things like that.
There are books written by respected academics and authors around the world talking about occupation and maybe using words that Israeli authorities wouldn't like to be used.
Apartheid.
But they are legit books. These aren't jihadi manuals that they're selling that they might like the propaganda might say they are. It was crazy. So anyway, so this was a separate bookshop cafe that had been raided, and that guy, so he was a friend of the group that we were with, and he'd been arrested that day. So we went there as a show of solidarity. But then I wanted to go pray. So I asked one of the local guys, where's the nearest mosque? Because Al-Aqsa was like a good 20-25 minute walk away. And at that time, I don't think I would have even got in. So he kind of gave me vague directions to a mosque. He's like, to go to the end of there, take a left, then take a right, and then go down that hill, and then take a right, then you'll see it. That sort of thing, right? So I'm kind of following it as best I could. And I end up at what I think is, I don't know if it's the mosque he directed me to, but I ended up at a mosque anyway. And so I went in, and it was weird. Like the front door was closed, and there was a guard outside, and he was like, "Oh yeah, go that way." Then I ended up going that way round, and then I ended up in a Palestinian family's courtyard. I'm in someone's house. I've invaded someone's house, and I was like, "Oh, is this the masjid?" And they were like, "Yeah, it's upstairs." And then they opened the gate, and I went up the stairs, and then the gate of the front, the door was actually locked to go into the mosque. And I was like, "Oh, it's locked." Was it? And they were like, "Oh yeah, sorry, it's closed." And I was like, "I don't know why you didn't tell me that when I was downstairs." But then very, very kindly, they came up with a prayer mat, and so I was able to pray. And then I came downstairs, and guys, when I tell you this is like an average Palestinian experience. The mum of the house, like, she came out to greet me with her sons and the dad, and they brought a plate of grapes out because I'm a guest. I'm a guest in their house, and obviously I'm Muslim because I've gone up to pray. So they bring a plate of grapes out because I can't come to the house and not be fed. And I didn't want to be rude either because I know that hospitality is a huge thing, not only in my culture but Arab culture and Palestinian culture. So I didn't want to be rude by refusing the grapes. I'm like, oh, I need to get back to my friends and my wife and stuff because she worries a lot when I'm away.
Oh,
Especially
I
there.
mean,
Every
considering we're
time I
there,
left her there, she was so worried. It's like I need to get back. I need to get back to my wife. But I didn't want to be rude. So yeah, I stayed for a bit, and then we ended up having a bit of a conversation, and they were asking me a bit about me, and they were telling me how welcome and how glad they were that I was there, which is another thing we'll talk about in a bit. And then they ended up introducing me to one of the younger brothers, and he'd basically been released in the last few months in the big prisoner exchange between Hamas and Israel. So you were talking about all this administrative detention. Part of the reason they took hostages was so that Israel would release those people in administrative detention. And so when they did the hostage releases and the prisoner swap, he was one of those people that were released, and so I ended up meeting this random lad called Ahmed in a random house in Old Jerusalem where I'd just gone to pray.
this is how kind they are.
Mad. And then they actually gave me the grapes
Yeah.
to take with me, and they were like, these are from Hebron. And Hebron is known for its fruit and especially its grapes. And they put it in a bag for me, and they're like, you have to take this with you. And I was like, I can't. And they're like, no. And obviously, I know how generous people are, so I didn't want to. So I just said thank you so much to them. And then I came back to these guys and told them the story. And then we shared the grapes amongst us. But yeah, that was just one incredible experience that I had.
Every single Palestinian we came across was amazing. They were wonderful, had the biggest hearts.
And they have the right to be so angry
Yeah.
and bitter at the rest of the world. But when they meet you, they welcome you with such open arms,
Yep.
such a huge smile on their face,
Yep.
such a joy for life. And it's so sad that they've become so used to the occupation and the apartheid and the harassment that they receive that they just decided to carry on with life anyway. That's just almost in the background.
Yeah,
to
I
them.
wouldn't be able to.
I wouldn't be able to.
I'd be
But
so.
that's
Yeah.
so much part of their life that's almost background noise.
Mm.
You like how like you're so used to, like, if you live on a busy, if your house overlooks a busy junction, and you have so
Just
much,
tune it out.
and yeah, you end up just tuning out all that traffic. Whereas someone who'd come like, I don't understand how you can live here on this busy like junction and that. You're like, oh, I don't even hear it anymore. That's almost how they are
Mm.
with this life that they're living. It's crazy. It's incredible. We saw dancing. We
Yeah.
saw Dubka,
Dabka.
the famous Palestinian dance. We saw a Dubka performance. It was so good, so good. We met so many civil society groups that are doing different things, arts, culture, museums.
Yeah,
We
museums.
saw so many different museums.
We actually went to the two main museums, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
we saw some museums capture the reality of the occupation and the history since the Nakba in 1948 and documenting what happened. But also some museums were just there to celebrate the culture and life of Palestinians.
Yep. We also went to that other museum.
Which one?
Um,
The Waldorf Museum? Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, oh, yes, yes. We also went to the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem because it was important actually, and this is what our guide said to us.
mm,
And also we wanted to go. It's important to understand where the Zionist mindset has come from, and also the horrific catastrophe that the Jews experienced vis-a-vis the Holocaust. It was beyond horrific. It was awful. And so it's important to understand the Holocaust and to see it, but also to see how the Holocaust is being taught to Israelis and to young Jews around
yeah.
the world in what is Israel, in Jerusalem. And so that was a very, very interesting experience.
Yeah.
But it was quite stark as well. And, we said we have to be a bit careful that we discuss this, but it's a bit stark when you go around and you see how starvation was used as a weapon against the Jewish people, especially in the internment camps, how they were cleansed from their land, how there was
Do
a
you know?
two-tier system put in place in 1930s Germany, um, to differentiate between Jewish people and other German
Yeah.
citizens, which is horrific. But then you're like, I don't understand how these same policies can be enacted upon the people of Gaza, for example, when we talk about starvation, the people of the West Bank, for example, when we talk about a two-tier system. It's just I don't
It is.
understand.
I genuinely believe it's an important museum to visit. So I do believe that if you go to Palestine, try and make a visit, try and pop in and see it, because I've been to a few museums, but I've not, I've not been to the Anne Frank ones, and I really want to go to that one.
I've been to the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam, yeah.
Yeah. But it is important, because it is important to understand that, they did go through something very, like, really horrifying.
Yeah, yeah, horrific.
Um, and just to, just to see that kind of history, but also to see everything, which we kind of, the only thing we didn't do is go to Tel Aviv, because I don't think we would have been.
Oh, we
Yeah.
didn't go anywhere else in Israel. We only
Yeah.
went to West Jerusalem to go see the museum, and the rest of the time we spent in East Jerusalem
Yeah.
and then the West Bank. But I think it's also important to note one of the things that kept being stressed to us, both from our guides, but also other Palestinian civil society groups and individuals that we met, is they kept stressing that they don't have a problem with Jews. They don't even have a problem with Israelis. It's the system they have a problem with.
Yeah.
If they could live side by side with Jewish people, with Israelis, under one system, one person, one vote, everyone treated equally, they would snap your hands off. That's what they want. And that's not to say there aren't extremist groups that wouldn't want that. We're talking about the vast majority, though. Because it's important to understand that Palestinians are like any other group of people. You put 10 Palestinians in a room, like you put 10 people of any society in a group, and you get 10 different opinions. So when we say this is what we saw and the opinions that we're giving are the people that we saw, of course there'll be people that might have more opinions, which may be valid due to their experiences. But we're talking about all of the people that we saw. This was the overwhelming
Yeah.
response that we got from them,
I
is
just,
that we don't hate Jews, we don't even hate Israelis, we hate the system. We just want to be able to live in our life in dignity, and ideally have one big country where everyone is treated equally
Yeah.
and has access to the best life that they can live.
yeah. Yeah. I was just, but when they say that, I was kind of, sometimes at moments I was just sitting there thinking, I just don't understand how that's going to happen, because of the way that they are dehumanizing Palestinians, that they just don't see, and we've seen it, they just don't see Palestinians as equal as themselves, like having the road separated, having, Jewish only buses. Um, it's a lot. It's a lot. But, everyone's just so lovely. They was just so kind. And, we went to, I think we should get into, because some of the questions they're going to ask us is how the
Yes,
experience.
yes.
Okay.
So Palestine is that was the experience in a nutshell. And please ask us any questions under the video of anything that you have that we didn't quite touch upon. But yeah, go on.
How we got in. So what happened was when we were in a big group, we had a couple of
Guides.
guides with us, and we went in, and we landed in Jordan, went in through, and then they asked you a question. I knew what was going to happen immediately. When she asked me, she goes to me, "What's your name?" I gave her my name. "Where's your parents from?" I said London. She goes, "Where are your parents from?" She kept saying, "Where are your parents from? Where are your parents from?" I was like, "London, London."
I said
She
Pakistan.
said Pakistan. He got stuck behind. He got pulled behind. So he got pulled behind, and Owen Jones, a journalist, he got pulled behind, and there was one more person, Ignacio,
Yeah, Ignacio from Argentina.
Argentina. So three of them got,
Rest of the group got away fine.
yeah.
It's
So
a real badge of honor to get stopped.
so
though.
we're at the other end, and I'm on this bus, and like when it got past like an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever, then I started to get really like
Yeah,
emotional.
she got really emotional.
I just got really emotional.
I heard she cried.
Because it's really tough, because when you land and you go to the border and you're seeing people with guns and like a lot of intimidation, your anxiety is already high, and then you think me thinking, oh my god, if Tez isn't with me on this, what am I going to do? But they for him, they basically what did they do to you actually? They must have done.
It wasn't that bad. So there's two ways to go to Palestine, Jerusalem, if you want to go. One is through Tel Aviv Airport, Ben Gurion Airport, or the other one is via land.
Jordan.
Yeah, through Jordan. So you land in Amman, which is the capital of Jordan, not Oman, the country. Amman, the capital of Jordan, and then you can cross by land by the King Hussein bridge, or the Lord Allenby Bridge, as they call it, on the other side. And then obviously there, but even though at that point you're in the West Bank, all of that access is controlled by the Israeli military and the Israeli.
So they can turn you away still.
So yeah, so that's essentially a big checkpoint. But obviously it's a border control, so you still got to do the normal checks you do at any border. Passport, you are who you say you are. You're not carrying anything you shouldn't be carrying. All that's fine, but you do get treated differently if you're different. So because I'm Muslim, and because I told them that I'm Pakistani heritage.
And
maybe
Mohammed.
because of part of who I am, I got pulled to a side. And my name's Mohammed, so I couldn't really hide it anyway. Not that I would have, but so I got pulled to a side. Owen got pulled to a side because he's a big presence on social media. And Ignacio, that one we couldn't work out. We didn't know why Ignacio got pulled to a side. we don't know that one. But everyone else kind of got through. Other points we got stopped. I got stopped. So on the first day we ended up going to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is obviously a huge,
Guys, the mosque was
huge
incredible.
bucket list thing for me, and a really spiritual, incredible experience praying in Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had his had his miracle journey to, and then was ascended to the heaven to speak to Allah, God, directly, which is when we were given the declaration of prayers, the salah, the 5 times a day prayers that we do. That happened at that point. And then the Prophet came back down and he led all the prophets in history in prayer. So that's an incredible experience to be able to be there and stand where they stood,
But
essentially.
there's guards everywhere, by the way. They need to give you permission to go in.
But access to the mosque is controlled by the Israeli military, so you can't get in without their permission, essentially. And Fridays there's a lot more access. So Friday prayers, there's a lot more access, and we were really grateful. I was really grateful to go on Fridays because I saw the mosque full and bustling, full of thousands of worshippers, and that was an amazing experience. We got a tour by the actual custodians of the mosque, a lovely guy called Mehdi, not the Mehdi, a Mehdi.
He has a sad story though. He got arrested a couple of times with his arm broken.
Yeah, so every Palestinian has a story of being arrested and harassed and being physically intimidated by the Israeli police or military. Every Palestinian has that story, especially the men. And yeah, so the first day we went, I was in my thobe. I went because I wanted to dress appropriately for the occasion. And then afterwards, when we left the mosque, we went to the Western Wall to see the Jewish holy site, and that is open to everyone. Everyone can go in. But because I was dressed how I dressed, I was the only one stopped.
They were like, no.
They were like, he can't go in, everyone else can go in. And then they called the supervisor because everyone was like, well, when they said I was British, it kind of changed things a little bit.
Yeah.
Then they called the supervisor, and the supervisor looked at my passport. I went, "Yeah, it's fine." And then we went in, and we saw that side.
Went to the church as well. It's,
Of the
it's
Holy
important to go
Sepulchre.
to these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta go because
Yeah.
you know me. I live in an old building.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
an old building. I
Yeah.
love an old door. I love old architecture. So even from that perspective, seeing the old city was incredible.
Mm.
But I had this enormous sense of guilt, being in the mosque, being in Jerusalem, that my privilege of my British passport allows me
Yeah.
access to these sites, and yet Palestinians who can trace their family heritage back 2,000 years, who are living a stone's throw away
Mm.
in the West Bank, don't have access to those sites. That's an incredible amount of guilt. And we had this conversation with a few Palestinians because there was a bit of criticism when we posted about, should you even be going? Should you not be
We should be
showing solidarity?
boycotting.
You should
Yeah.
be boycotting and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, I hadn't heard that opinion before. And so with every Palestinian who I asked that question to, whether it was Basil Arda in the village in the south of the West Bank, whether it was civil society groups, whether it was Mustafa Barghouti, whether it was people who had been in administrative detention, whether it's people living in East Jerusalem itself, whether it's people, Israeli Arabs who could move a bit more freely in Israel. Whoever I asked, they were like, no, we want you to come. People not coming to visit the Holy Lands only benefits Israel,
Yeah.
because extremist Zionists have an idea that they want to take over at least a portion of, if not the whole of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, because they want to rebuild the temple that was lost in the year something AD, like 100 AD, the second temple, Solomon's temple, that was destroyed, and they want to rebuild Solomon's temple for the third time on the site of Al-Aqsa. So us not visiting Al-Aqsa only benefits the Zionists.
So go.
So go. They are so grateful that you are there, and also it will massively benefit their economy, because we kept being told by market traders, by shop owners, by business owners that since the war, since tourism has essentially almost vanished, it has affected their businesses so much. And these people, whatever is happening in Gaza and the horrificness of that, the Palestinians in the West Bank still need to live.
Mm.
And so we still need to support them, because we can't also let them go the way that Gaza has gone. And we will still fight for Gaza, but we also need to fight for the life that the Palestinians are living in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. It's really, really important. And we cannot lose Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is so important to us. And I get that it's important to the Jews as well. And they have the Western world where they're able to pray. But we cannot lose that site. It has been it's been part of our religion for since the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, since the Prophet's time, because that's where he ascended to heaven from.
And even
So it's massively
non-Muslims are
important.
watching this. Like, please go, because the Palestinians, they want you. They want to show you that they are there, that they are alive, and they have an identity. And I think I put it on Facebook, and someone that said to me that I didn't know that we could go there. Of
Yeah.
course,
Go to Ramallah, go see a Dabka show
Yeah,
in the theatre. Go to the local markets and get fresh olive oil and eat at the local restaurants where the food is
beautiful.
banging.
Yeah.
And just see the beauty in this amazing 1,000-year-old culture, and just experience it. And so I would say, and I can't promise you, because a lot of people have asked this, like, what would happen to me if I go there? I cannot promise you that as a Muslim that you would go there and it'd be plain sailing and you'd make it through and you'd get treated absolutely fine. I cannot promise you that. I can't promise you that, because I met a family on Jummah in Al-Aqsa, a family from Batley actually, and they recognized me and they wanted to take pictures, which is very, very nice. But obviously they were quite religious families, so I assumed they probably dressed in thobes and religious garments 90% of the time. And they talked to me about the harassment that they'd received, that we didn't receive because we were protected by the group that we were in. So I can't promise you that you won't get harassed, or you're not going to get harassed anywhere near the level that Palestinians will be. So don't worry about that. But I can't promise you that you won't be stopped and spoken to in a way that you don't like. I can't promise you that won't happen. But what I will say is, it's important for us to make our presence felt there for the Palestinians.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very, very important, like what you just said.
Anything else?
No, I just feel there's still so much, but if there's anything that we can respond to, let us know. People have said, is it safe? I mean, just follow the guidelines. If they're saying the guidelines are saying it's safe to fly in, it's safe to fly in.
Yeah, follow the UK Foreign Office advice.
Yeah.
Go on there. They update that advice almost weekly.
Mm.
And so just stick to the areas that they advise you to stick to.
Yeah.
Get a local guide. You can find them online quite easily via Google or Instagram. And people we all know people who've been, and they'll be able to give you their contacts on the ground
And
as
flying
well.
from Jordan.
And yeah, my one advice would be going via Jordan, because it is a lot easier. I've been told you get a lot less harassment at the
And
border.
also, we don't want to give our money to
Yeah,
Tel
if not a
Aviv.
boycott, then we don't want to go via Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Um,
And what else were they saying? That's some of the questions. Oh, when Palestinians said that, how can we help them? Talk about keep doing what we are doing. Talk about them.
Advocating, write to your MPs,
Advocating,
put
yep.
pressure on,
Yep.
because we want to dismantle the apartheid colonial settler system.
And it is an apartheid.
That's the real victory.
It is an apartheid. This is what they're doing to people in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. I dread to think what they're doing to people in Gaza.
Yeah, but the apartheid isn't a term that we just saw and we thought, oh yeah, I
Mm.
think this is apartheid. Apartheid is a term used by Palestinian civil societies,
Mhm.
Israeli civil societies,
Yep.
civil societies across the globe like Amnesty International, media groups. This isn't a term that we've just decided to start using willy-nilly. This is a term used by respected civil society organizations, human rights organizations, including Israeli ones and others around the world. So this is not terms that we are just deciding
No.
to use willy-nilly. So just important to stress that as well, in case you're going, why are you using such inflammatory language? We're not. We're using language that has also been used by respected people who work in these types of situations around the world.
Yeah. And
What was your personal? Obviously, the laws are.
I had a lot of lows.
The laws are the conditions that we saw, the life that people are being subjected to, and all of that. And we've talked about that throughout the podcast. So those were the laws. What were your highs?
I think going to the Al-Aqsa mosque and being able to pray that on the morning that we left. I think that was, and the markets, and I'm a sucker for just going to markets and places like that, but seeing and speaking to Palestinian people, market holders and stuff like that for me is always going to be a high, because that's when you see how genuine and how open-hearted people are. But yeah, that for me
Yeah,
was
that's really good. That's really nice. I think I've got three highs. One, the vibe of the old city
yeah.
and the history, both in the old city, but also parts of the West Bank as well. Like seeing the Church of the Nativity, which is where Jesus alayhi salam was born. So we saw that in Bethlehem. Like going to Bethlehem, man, and also praying in all these places. Seeing the real history, our shared history, our shared cultures. Seeing the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, seeing the Western Wall, seeing Al-Aqsa and praying in Al-Aqsa, that was incredible. Seeing the old walls, it was like being back in time. So that was incredible for me. Meeting the people and being steeped in their culture and learning more about the dance that they do, the Dabka dance that we've all seen on Instagram and TikTok, learning about the history of that, learning about the clothing, the food, the people, all of that was incredible. But my favorite personal experience was on the final morning when we went to Al-Aqsa to pray in the mosque for the last time, getting stopped at the gate by the soldiers, and then one of them saying to me, it was me, Shai, and our friend Sana, and then them still looking at my passport, Mohammed Ilyas, and then going, oh, are these two your daughters?
Oh, this is what I was going to say. Guys, it absolutely killed me to even be nice to these soldiers. Absolutely killed me. But I had to say to them, I said, oh, no, what are you talking about? This is my husband.
It
They
is,
thought-
it is, it is, it is astonishing. Like it's basically.
But you don't look old enough to be my dad. I don't know what
There's
it
a 5-year age gap, guys. It's but I think if when you are there, do as the Palestinians do.
Yeah.
Do not go there.
Don't be a bravado.
With, as much as we might hate the system and what's happening, do not go there with bravado and aggro. They don't care. It's not the British police. They will detain you and deport you, or give you grief and stuff. Don't just do as the Palestinians do, and just you're there for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so your presence there, you're not going to incite a revolution being there. So when you go there, support the businesses, support the people, have conversations, go to the holy sites, see the places you need to see, and keep your interaction with the military and settlers
Yeah.
to an absolute minimum. Follow the guideline of your guides, and go there with good intentions, and you will have an eye opening and enriching experience.
Yeah. And oh my God, guys, a piece of you will be left behind in Palestine like it has with us.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.